Watcher, this is a short-term user review of this HILS headless guitar, which I've had for now only a couple of weeks. I bought it from Anderton's. I paid the price they were asking for it. I bought this shortly after making the review of the Strandberg Boden that I put on the channel a few weeks ago. If you recall, this overall summary of this review of the Boden was I didn't like the ergonomics of this upper horn. Not a huge fan of how the strings are attached and how difficult they are to change, and I didn't like the tone control. Now, since then, I have made some internal modifications to this, so this is no longer as Strandberg made it. It's got active electronics in it, giving me a working tone control in the sense that matters to me. I have not, though, done anything about reprofiling this horn or trying to improve the tuners as yet. What intrigued me about this guitar from HILS is, firstly, it's a lot cheaper. So if, say, it were to have exactly the same problems as the Strandberg, I would feel less bad about attacking this with an angle grinder in order to fix those issues. But it's ergonomically, it was obviously quite different to the Strandberg. It's a different vibe. The switching is quite different. The pickup style is quite different. I thought there would be parts of it I might prefer to the Strandberg. I thought there'd be parts of it that, I think the two companies actually could learn quite a lot from each other. So let me talk you through the majorly positive things. So like with the Boden, this neck side strap pin is on this back side of the upper horn, which I'm not a fan of personally. But you'll recall one of my beefs with it on the Boden was if I'm reclining on my couch, I get a strap pin to the sternum because it sticks out the back. It's the furthest sticking out piece of the guitar, and it creates a hot spot. On this HILS, I don't know if you can see that, but they have angled this horn so that it doesn't stick out any further than the slab back of the guitar. If you lay it on the ground, it lies flat on this, whereas if you lay the Strandberg on its back, the pin sticks out. Now that's excellent for a couple of reasons. If you're inclined to leave it on a table or like lie on a couch or something, this is going to be evenly supported across the whole back of the guitar and not have a sticky out scratchy thing, whereas the Strandberg, if you're to do that, is going to be supported on 2 points and have a sticky out scratchy thing. So you'll damage the finish on a Strandberg and you'll damage whatever it's lying on, and with this you won't. So unequivocally, this is a better design than the Strandberg in this respect. I would very much like to see Strandberg copy that. I would prefer even more to see both companies work out that they should put the bridge pin in that way on this horn, but can't have everything. The other thing that you'll notice on the HILS is it has an integrated stand. The bottom of the guitar is level. You can place it on the ground like that, lean it against a wall or a chair or whatever, and it will be pretty stable in that configuration. It will not fall over or slide. It's got rubberized feet. They're pretty grippy. I have found that to be really handy, whereas comparatively the Strandberg, you need to carry around a stand with you, whether that's the official one or this elegant 3D printed model that I'm using. I'll link to where you can print that out for yourself if I remember when I'm editing this. I personally like that the body is a little bit more compact in the top to bottom dimension. It makes it fit in a few more kinds of places than perhaps the Strandberg fits into. I think I prefer the wheel down here as the truss rod adjustment rather than Allen key in the top. But that's a thing about which reasonable people can disagree, and I'm not going to fight anyone about that. Finally, in things that I looked at and thought, yeah, I need to buy one in order to look at it properly, this bridge and tuner system is very different to what's on the Strandberg or on any other headless guitar I've seen. We've got essentially a normal bridge on the top of the guitar, so we've got sensible adjustments for intonation, accessible adjustments for action. We don't need to de-string the guitar or do anything risky with high tension strings in order to adjust action and intonation on this guitar, which is really good. On the Strandberg, to do the equivalent adjustments, so action height, you have to lift the string off of this tiny piece here, unscrew a locking screw with a hex thing, move the bridge pin by rotating it, put the string back on, lock the thing back down, test it, rinse, repeat. It's relatively tedious to adjust the action on a Strandberg, and the intonation is even worse. Your only way to adjust the intonation is to move this entire tuner body back and forth on the guitar, and to do that you have to release the tension on the string, undo an Allen key, shift it, tighten that Allen screw back down, tune it all up again, check whether your intonation's in the right place. If it's wrong, undo it. That's probably one of the reasons why these are so expensive, is because the setup time required to get them into a good playing position is going to be immense. Once it's there, it's stable and all that, but if you're the kind of person who likes to change your string gauges, I just wouldn't go near a Strandberg while they're using this kind of tuner. So I thought this had a lot of promise, because these tuners separate the concern of tuning, which is this lower step on the bridge tuner assembly, from the action intonation part, which is very conventional. Unfortunately, they are not quite separated as you would wish them to be, in that where the intonation position is sets limits on where the tuner can work and capture the ball end of the string. This whole system would have been better if they had shifted the tuners down a lot more, perhaps to the bottom of the body rather than immediately below the bridge. I don't know if it will make it out on the camera, but on my plain G string here with the intonation in the right place, I've got the windings from the ball end interfering or very close to the bridge inflection point, and if I had needed to move it a bit further, I think that would have started affecting my sound. The same is happening on the low E, the A, lesser extent on the D. The other two strings are okay. But my major problem is in the low E. In order to get the ball end to catch in the tuner and then give me the range of tuning with that rigid of a string, trying to do that kind of bends on it, it was let's say not enjoyable and quite tedious to get it into the narrow range of adjustment where that will work, and I would not want to have to change that string in a hurry to get it to work. Mixed bag there. It is a better idea. I don't think that this execution is the best that can be done. I would like HILS to well, I wonder if they've already tried it and there's a good reason why putting this further into the body isn't the answer. If they haven't tried that, that's what I'd suggest they try. If they want to involve me in the development process, they can get in touch. I'd be quite interested to help, because with the problems that I have. A headless guitar really is a good thing for me to have. I'm just not satisfied with the ergonomics and performance of any of the headless guitars I can get my hands on. Speaking of ergonomics and usability, let us talk about the usual stuff. The neck is painted, which isn't my favorite idea, but it's nice enough. It's not gone sticky or anything, so it's in the realm of very usable necks for me. It's got straight frets, as you can see, not the fan frets, so you're not committing to that different style. We have a bone nut, which is slotted okay, but not great. It could be a bit deeper on a few of the strings, and because of how the strings work, it's not easy for me to lever the string out of the slot, deepen it, and put the string back in like I would on a conventional headed guitar. I would, for that reason, probably prefer headless guitars to go with a 0 fret like Strandberg do. It's just that you don't. It's bad practice to create a thing that needs adjusting and then you can't really adjust it in situ, which is what we've got going on here. But I really wouldn't want to have to change a broken string on this in the context of under pressure trying to get it done for the next song, because again, we have restricted range of motion on tuners. They don't turn infinitely like a normal guitar does. We would have to remove the old string, reset the tuner. I will have to find an Allen key to loosen this screw here. Now, inside this headpiece is much more complicated than it looks, and I think possibly much more complicated than it needs to be. So this is titanium, which seems like overall a bad idea as a choice of material, but I would like to understand why they chose it before criticizing it too much. But it's got it under this stainless steel screw is the string, and then there's a small circular brass shim to protect the titanium from the steel. I would have thought it would work out better from a galvanic compatibility point of view to have this piece also made from stainless steel rather than titanium, something harder than titanium, so that you don't need the sacrificial brass pad which appears to be there to protect the titanium piece. And then you could have used the same material for the grub screws, and you also wouldn't have different colors of silver tone going on up here to the same extent, which doesn't annoy me, but it again, if I were micro criticizing the design, I think it would look nice if they were all the one silver tone and not two different ones going on up there. 2D sculpted heel joint. It's nicer to put a chamfer in this third dimension to make that thinner, but the body of this is already quite slightly thinner than a normal guitar. So I can understand why perhaps they didn't feel like they had the capability to thin this out any further. The contours of the neck carve and the contours of the heel carve follow each other pretty closely, which is always a nice detail thing to see. Now, speaking of colors, this is obviously the very black metal, for metal guitarists kind of thing, which isn't usually my vibe, but that's partly why I got it, because I like all my guitars to be different colors to each other to the extent that that's possible, which makes a couple of things on here a little bit out of place looking. So the black, the titanium, raw titanium colored titanium bit with the silver screws, that could have been cerakoted black or made black somehow, and if it weren't titanium, they would have had the budget to make it out of to add the cerakote. This nut being real bone is a problem for a couple of reasons. I mean, I guess bones on things is a bit metal, but I would have probably suggested using a Graphtec Tusk in black for this guitar, just because I think that bleached bone looks a bit tonally odd. There's a few other bits of hardware down here that could have been black and aren't. I'm not gonna be too worried about that. I just think it would have looked a little bit cooler with a black nut and this part being in black. But then, aesthetics are aesthetics. It's up to you what you think. I talked about the stand, which lets it sit nicely there. Unfortunately, if it's plugged in with pretty much any of the plugs I've got, that plug will hit the ground before the feet do. I think there might have been an opportunity for them to find a way to orient that plug in a different way so that you can leave it plugged in and set it on the ground, just so you can be playing, maybe the doorbell rings, you have to go answer it, you can put the guitar down, go answer the door, get your Amazon package or whatever it is, come back and just pick it up and start playing again. I think that would have been nice. The other ergonomic thing is the positioning of these curves. So if I hold it in a sort of fairly natural to me place to play a chord, you'll note my picking hand is like over the fretboard here. This is just where things fall. And if I move that to the other leg, now it's right on the bridge and it feels like a big reach with this left hand. So on my right leg, it's a bit cramped, but not unpleasantly so for the the end of the fretboard that I mostly use. But if I was trying to play up here, it would be uncomfortable. And then my picking hand is interfering with the neck. And over here, I've got like the opposite problem. This is too far away. I guess it's easier if I were to be playing at the dusty end, which might be very well what this guitar's for. And maybe this is trying to suggest that what you should be doing is palm muting and playing from frets 12 up to 24, which is not the way I tend to play the guitar. But if that's what this is for, then it's doing that job well. I will say if it is meant to be on that leg, then the belly carve isn't quite in the right place. It needs to go a bit further towards this horn as well. Same applies to this second curve. I can, if I wanted to sit on the couch and play in a classical style without poking my partner in the eye, I have to have it on my left leg, which is not where I normally would put it. I'd normally want this guitar on my right leg to feel comfortable, but doesn't quite ergonomically go in that on that leg. It just seems like these curves are a few inches shifted towards the tail end of the guitar, and they need to be a bit more this way. I haven't found it to be a problem, probably because I end up playing with my hand right up here, but normally I would want this volume knob to be a little bit further away from the position it is, so it doesn't accidentally get knocked as I'm playing. Let's talk about the switching. So on the Strandberg, I've got a 5-way switch, which gives me bridge, outer, both outer coils, both inner coils, neck single coil, and then neck humbucker, which if you can pick 5 tones out of a guitar with 2 humbuckers, those are the ones you should pick, in my opinion. So top marks to Strandberg for that choice. On this guitar, I've got 6 tones, but they're not as sensitively chosen. So I've got humbucker bridge, both humbuckers, humbucker neck, or I can pull this tone knob out, which splits both into a single coil of each humbucker, and then I've got, I believe it's the outer coils that I'm going to be getting, so it will be outer coil of the humbucker, of the bridge, so the bridgiest single coil, the outer two together, and then the neckiest single coil. So compared to the Strandberg, we've got a bridge single coil tone added, and we've got the both humbuckers tone added. But what we've lost is the inner single coil tone. There's no way to access that, and that's a little bit unfortunate because that's quite a useful sound to have. And I would have forgone the other two sounds in order to have that one back. Pickup quality wise, these are cheap passive ceramic humbuckers, and they sound like it, which is it's not a style of pickup that I personally favour. I prefer a more vintage voiced with a weaker magnet. I'll play you a few things. So just straight through the tones, here's the bridge humbucker. Neck humbucker. Middle humbuckers. Bridge single coil. Neck single coil. Middle single coils. So of those tones in the room, personally, I enjoyed the middle single coil more than the others. I do think perhaps the neck humbucker on this guitar needs lifting up. It's further from the strings than I think it should be. But as I say, I'm not actually that familiar with how ceramics should look on a guitar, how they should be adjusted. I am considering whether I want to replace the pickups in this guitar with an active set of something so that I can get a more vintage tone and also use it more conveniently when I'm traveling. I can't sit here in good conscience and tell you that it is superior instrument to the Strandberg Boden. It isn't. It also isn't in all respects an inferior instrument to the Strandberg Boden. There are things about this guitar which I like better. I like the ergonomic choice of chamfering this upper horn. I do prefer the ability to adjust the action and intonation as I need to, and I like the hand, the use of this upper horn as a handle is much more viable on here. I like the integrated stand. I think if as a guitar to travel with on business, or to have knocking around your office, so you can pick something up and practice while you're thinking, it would be a very solid choice. I think because the difficulty of changing a string is not less than the Strandberg, I would say also it's not any harder than it is on the Strandberg. I would not want to take one of these instruments to a gig and have to worry about changing a string between songs or right before the gig starts. In either case, I would take a conventional guitar in preference to either of these two. There's an elephant in the room about pricing. So I spent on this Boden secondhand something around the equivalent of £1,200, taking into account the exchange rates at the time. I mean, guitar prices during the pandemic were inflated to a great extent. So I imagine you might find it cheaper now to get a second-hand one, but the new price on a Boden on Anderton seems to be around 1,500. The price on this when I bought it was $299, so 300 quid. Not taking money into account, if I could take either of these guitars, I would take the Boden, because I think the pickups sound nicer for the kind of music that I play, and I can live with the fan frets and the slightly annoying ergonomics of the strap button in exchange for a slightly better position when it's just where I'm trying to play it. It lands more where my hands want to be. That's a better deal for me. If the question is, you got 1,500 quid to spend on guitars and you're trying to do my, cover band style gig, what would I pick out of, and really needed a headless, and these are the only two that are available for consideration. So that's a really weird set of constraints. I would buy two of these so I don't have to worry about changing the strings, so that's at 600 quid. I'd put Fishman Fluence Open Core Classics in both of them, which is another 500 quid, so I now spent 1,100 quid. I'd keep the remaining 400 quid, and I'd certainly do that before I'd buy a Boden, because to get a Boden where I would be happy to gig it, I would need two of them. So I'd rather buy two of these and upgrade the pickups and keep 400 quid than buy a Boden. And I think that might be true for most players. As I say, I would love to see a few improvements to this design from HILS in the future. I'd like to see a positioning of the output jack so that I can use the stand while I've got the guitar plugged in. I would love them to make a more vintage voiced pickup available. I guess I would love them to improve the tuners. I think that's the thing the whole headless market needs, is someone to work out how to do tuners in a way that sucks less than this. And I respect HILS for trying this. These are not a commonly available off the shelf design. I do think there are aspects of this system that are much better than what we've got on the Strandberg, which is the previous state of the art. But I think you want the next or the one after revision of this, and not this one as the one that we end up sticking with. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in another video.